We're zeroing in on a truly tragic and seemingly unprovoked attack that occurred on a commuter train in Charlotte, North Carolina, an incident that's generated just widespread public outrage and some sharp political reactions. Our mission today is pretty clear. We're taking a detailed look at a transcript from a YouTube video by LiveNOW from FOX. It's a primary source that captures the immediate aftermath, statements from key figures. We'll explore the details of this deeply disturbing event, delve into the alleged perpetrator's background, and critically dissect the varied and often conflicting responses from elected officials. The goal really is to offer you a comprehensive shortcut to understanding the many complexities woven into this single tragic event.
Yeah, and what's truly illuminating here is how quickly a single heartbreaking incident like this can act as a kind of flashpoint. It instantly highlights these broader systemic issues within our society. You know, this wasn't just a local tragedy. It swiftly became a national focal point, drew immediate attention to critical debates around public safety, mental health support systems, and the very effectiveness of our criminal justice framework. It really forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions about how we protect our most vulnerable citizens.
Absolutely. And the core event itself is just almost unfathomable in its brutality and its randomness. On August 22nd, a 23-year-old Ukrainian woman who had sought refuge here in the United States after fleeing the war in Ukraine was tragically stabbed to death. On a Charlotte light rail, the source describes this as an apparently random attack, emphasizing it was completely unprovoked. The alleged assailant reportedly had no prior interaction or conversation with her before the attack. There's even a screen grab mentioned in the source material capturing the moment, showing the woman, quote, does not see it coming at all as the man approaches with a knife. It's just an agonizing detail. Really underscores the shocking abruptness of it all.
It really does.
It highlights a tragic irony, doesn't it? I mean, to escape the horrors of war, seeking peace and safety in a new country, only to be killed in such a horrific, random act of violence here, it speaks to a profound vulnerability.
Indeed, that sheer randomness combined with her background as a refugee, it just amplifies the tragedy significantly. The suspect in this case is 34-year-old the Carlos Brown Jr., and immediately this raises a crucial and pressing question for so many people. Could this have been prevented?
Right.
We've seen significant, sharp criticism aimed at officials in Charlotte, with many arguing they failed in their responsibility to keep Brown off the streets, especially given what the sources reveal about his extensive history. This isn't just hindsight talking. It's a direct challenge to the systems that are supposed to ensure public safety.
And when you start to look at that history, the criticism, well, it gains some serious traction. This is where it gets really interesting. Maybe unsettling is a better word. The source material details the Carlos Brown Jr.'s background as one marked by a long record of criminal charges and psychiatric episodes. So this isn't an isolated incident. We're talking about a pattern here.
A clear pattern.
He has, according to the sources, served time in prison and been briefly committed for other mental issues. Even as recently as earlier this year, he was arrested after repeatedly calling 911 from a hospital.
Repeatedly calling 911.
Wow. But perhaps the most contentious detail, the one that quickly became a kind of lightning rod in the public discourse and really intensified the scrutiny, is the claim that he was a well-known career criminal who had been previously arrested and released on cashless bail in January, a total of 14 times.
14 times in January.
Yeah, that number 14 times, it just jumps out at you. It's not just a statistic. It points to this recurring cycle. And, for those who might not be familiar, cashless bail generally means a defendant can be released without paying money, often based on a promise to return to court.
Right.
The idea behind reforms like that is typically to reduce disparities for low-income folks who might be stuck pre-trial just because they can't afford bail.
Right. That's the intent.
But, as we clearly see here, it's also become a major flashpoint. Critics argue it can jeopardize public safety, letting individuals with, expensive criminal histories back into the community.
Well, what's truly striking here as we connect this to the bigger picture is that this incident isn't just about one person's actions. It's really about the apparent systemic failures, isn't it? This profound disconnect between criminal justice and mental health support. When someone has a history like Brown's cycling between prison mental health commitments, repeated arrests, it forces us to ask these really tough questions about intervention points.
Exactly. Where were the opportunities?
Right. Where were the opportunities to provide effective treatment or long-term support, or maybe more robust supervision that could have potentially prevented this tragedy? And that detail about the 14 times arrested and released, particularly under cashless bail, that just immediately catapults this whole discussion into the heart of these ongoing debates about judicial discretion, the intended versus actual impacts of bail reform, and ultimately the huge issue of community safety. It just lays bare the challenges, balancing individual rights, presumption of innocence, and the public's right to feel safe, especially with someone who has such a complex and chronic history. It forces us to confront whether the system is really equipped to handle people who repeatedly fall through its cracks.
Exactly. And with such a clear, frankly, alarming pattern, plus the sheer horror of the attack itself, it's no wonder this just ignited a firestorm of political reactions. This wasn't just local, it rapidly cascaded into a national conversation. Drew immediate strong statements from some very prominent figures. Let's start with former President Trump's statement. He put it out on X. He described seeing the horrific video of a beautiful young Ukrainian refugee who came here to escape the war and was innocently riding the metro in Charlotte, where she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic. Strong words.
Very strong language.
Yeah, he didn't mince words. Reiterated that the perpetrator was a well-known career criminal who'd been arrested and released on cashless bail 14 times in January. And Trump directly questioned, what the hell is he doing riding the train and walking the streets? His conclusion was unambiguous. Criminals like this need to be locked up.
Okay.
And it's interesting, the source mentions he was initially asked about it by a reporter and sort of suggested nobody would look into it.
Oh, really?
But then released that very strong statement the next morning, clearly indicating he had looked into it and was, quote, outraged.
Well, what's truly insightful there isn't just that politicians react differently, but how they react. Trump's immediate, very direct language. It frames the problem and the solution in a specific way, doesn't it? Jumping straight to mentally deranged lunatic and the call to lock up criminals like this. It kind of bypasses any discussion about the systemic issues like mental health treatment or judicial processes.
Yeah, it focuses right on punishment.
Exactly. It focuses almost entirely on individual blame and a purely punitive solution. And that approach immediately draws a distinct political line, emphasizing law and order above all else, pointing to immediate forceful action as the only acceptable response. It reflects a perspective that really prioritizes swift, severe punishment as the main way to ensure public safety, often without digging into the complex reasons behind the behavior.
And those different approaches, those fault lines, definitely continue with other responses we saw. Speaker Mike Johnson, for example, issued a similarly strong statement. He called it an innocent young woman brutally murdered in cold blood by a man with 14 prior arrests. He was very direct, saying this never should have happened. But because of Democrats' soft-on-crime policies, another young person is dead.
Right, directly linking it to policy.
Directly. And he also brought the media into it, questioning, where's the mainstream media? Their silence today speaks volumes. His core message was just unequivocally clear: law and order saves lives.
And Speaker Johnson's statement, it immediately signals a specific ideological critique. Using that phrase, soft on crime policies, well, that's a politically charged term. It usually refers to reforms aimed at reducing incarceration, like certain bail policies, maybe changes to sentencing.
Right, things like cashless bail.
Exactly. And opponents, like Speaker Johnson, argue these reforms prioritize offenders over safety and lead to more crime. So his statement isn't just about this one incident. It's a broader condemnation of a whole approach to criminal justice that he and others see as fundamentally flawed. By linking her death directly to these policies, he's actively shaping the narrative, assigning blame to a political philosophy, and even questioning media coverage to amplify his point. It's a very clear ideological framing.
Then we have North Carolina Governor Josh Stein's statement. This offered a different kind of emphasis and a different proposed solution, while also expressing deep sorrow. Of course, he focused more on the governmental response side. He said he was heartbroken for the family and appalled by the footage, but his proposed solution leaned heavily into law enforcement resources. He said, we need more cops on the beat to keep people safe.
Focus on police presence.
Yeah. That's why my budget calls for more funding to hire more well-trained police officers. He then called on the legislature to pass his law enforcement recruitment and retention package to address vacancies, so agencies can stop these horrific crimes and hold violent criminals accountable.
Yeah, you can see a distinct shift there from the previous rhetoric we discussed. Governor Stein's response is more of an appeal to practical, actionable steps within the existing system. Focus on strengthening law enforcement, increasing resources, his emphasis on more funding, well-trained officers, a recruitment package.
Yeah.
It frames the issue as one of capacity and staffing.
Right. It's about resources.
It is. This approach tries to address the immediate safety concern by bolstering the visible presence and effectiveness of police rather than focusing on, say, broad systemic blame or ideological policy fights. It suggests that with enough resources, the existing structures can be made more effective. It's a more, maybe, pragmatic approach rather than purely ideological.
And finally, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles' statement offered yet another perspective. This one felt very rooted in the local community, sentiment and respect for the victim. She described it as a senseless and tragic loss. And interestingly, she specifically thanked media partners and community members who have chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for Iran's family, referring to the victim.
That's a significant point, the respect aspect.
It is. She noted being heartbroken and explicitly stated she was thinking about what safety really looks like in our city. Her commitment seemed very much focused locally. Protect our residents and ensure Charlotte is a place where everyone feels safe.
And Mayor Lyles' statement, it reflects a response that's perhaps more immediately centered on the human tragedy and the community impact. Her focus on grieving with the family, her appeal to media partners for respect. It highlights a different dimension, doesn't it? The human element, the impact of how this tragedy is shared publicly.
Yeah, the compassion.
Exactly. Her commitment to ensuring Charlotte is safe is, of course, a universal sentiment for a mayor. But her approach as a local leader necessarily looks at safety from that community-specific lens. While she doesn't dive into specific policy critiques like cashless bail or call for big state funding increases, her statement really underscores that local government responsibility for safety and the importance of, well, a compassionate, respectful communication after something so disturbing. She's navigating the emotional impact while reaffirming that core civic duty.
So what does this all mean? When we try to bring these really diverse viewpoints together, we've unpacked a truly tragic incident, took the life of a young Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte. It's shown harsh, unavoidable light on an alleged perpetrator with an incredibly long and complex history, criminal and mental health related. We've also explored how this single horrific event just quickly drew the attention of national and local leaders, each offering their unique perspective on what went wrong and, maybe more importantly, how to fix it. We've heard calls for stricter law enforcement, changes to bail policies. We've seen proposals for more police funding and presence, and even observed discussions around media responsibility and respect for victims. It's a multifaceted discussion, clearly, with leaders often kind of talking past each other, interpreting the core problem differently.
Absolutely. And this deeply unsettling event and the intense, varied reactions it provoked, it really forces all of us, I think, to confront these difficult questions. Questions about the complex balance between individual liberties and overarching community safety. It challenges us to scrutinize the actual effectiveness of our criminal justice and mental health systems, especially when dealing with individuals who repeatedly cycle through them like this. Ultimately, it prompts us to reflect on how a society truly protects its most vulnerable, especially when those vulnerabilities, intersect with these systemic gaps. So consider this as you reflect on our deep dive today. Given all the specific details shared from our sources, particularly the perpetrator's extensive documented history of arrests and mental health issues, coupled with the sharply conflicting solutions proposed by different leaders, what single aspect of this tragedy stands out most to you? What area seems to need the most urgent attention, or perhaps a fundamentally different approach to prevent future incidents like this one? Something to think about.